Okay, so we have a third assassination attempt on President Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump. We have Elon Musk making some massive waves when it comes to SpaceX. There's some really cool stuff. We're going to check that out. Kash Patel is also on the short list for Attorney General. We've got Trump personally confirming that he's going to go on the Joe Rogan podcast. We've got Tim Walls being meme-worthy, as Tim Walls always is. We got some funny memes to share on that one. We got that and a whole lot more. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. And welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We're on X, Locals, Rumble, and YouTube. If you are a returning guest, I want to thank you so much because you are the ones that are helping us on our road to 10,000. That's where we're heading next. And Chuck, you're along for the ride as well. I got my buddy Chuck in the house tonight, so we're going to talk about all kinds of great stuff. But we're going to start off, which I will admit that we started recording this and I hadn't pressed record. So we had a good warm-up to this conversation, didn't we?
Oh man.
I leaned back in my
Amateur
chair and was
hour.
like, are you kidding me? We've been sitting here talking about this and nothing. But before we get into all this wild new stuff, we're going to do a quick recap about what went on in Western North Carolina, East Tennessee. We're from East Tennessee. And Chuck, I know I've shouted you out a couple times in the video because you and your wife, you are obviously from here. You and I grew up here together. And your wife is not from here, but she used her talents and her networking abilities, and you all resourced a whole ton of stuff to drive all the way here from out towards the East Coast and come help the area that you grew up in. So give us a quick recap on that, because what motivated you to do that and all
Yeah.
that good stuff? I mean,
Yeah, I would just say that watching the news and being relatively close to this area that was impacted, I just felt a deep conviction about my home and knowing that people that I love and care and just an area of the world that I love was deeply impacted. And I live in North Carolina. Western North Carolina was getting, and rightfully so, is getting a ton of, uh, mainstream media coverage. And again, rightfully so because they've been wrecked. But I also knew that the community we're from, Northeast Tennessee, was not getting the same level of attention and support. And so I told my wife, I was like, I have to go. I have to go do something. And I didn't really have a great plan, but I knew that picking up a box and moving it so somebody didn't have to would be a help. Um, and so my wife was able to mobilize some supplies through the amazing World Wide Webs and drove up there last Friday and hooked up with you. And then we were able to just kind of literally go, I hate to say it, but door to door and deliver supplies to people that need it. And because of the rural nature of Western North Carolina and Northeast Tennessee, it was candidly my first time seeing apocalyptic damage like this. And
yeah.
so you saw that picture on the minivan of the water line. It's just, it's unlike anything these people have ever seen and hopefully ever will see again. And so, one, I felt deep conviction about needing to be there and needing to help in some way. And two, I felt deep conviction about needing to drive to the source of these places rather than giving donations to an organization like the American Red Cross or Samaritan's Purse, which, by the way, are amazing
Oh
organizations, and y'all
yeah.
should
Yeah.
continue to give to them and support them. But I know enough about these people because I'm from there, and Jared knows enough about these people because he's from there to know that having resources at a community civic center might not mean that it makes it directly to the people that need them the most. And so Jared and I had the good fortune of delivering supplies on Friday of last week to people in some of these communities that need them. And it's stuff as simple as toilet paper, and it's
Yeah.
stuff as simple as feminine hygiene. And yeah, also, there was a lady in Elizabethton, Tennessee that we pulled up with a Walmart brand cereal, and she said that's my favorite cereal. And so we were able to give her favorite
Yep.
cereal, right? Like
Yep.
there's stories like that where this lady's house was barely hanging on. Pause on that one for a second. That's actually worth talking about. But um, yeah, I think my request and coaching for people that are listening to this is twofold. One, when disaster happens, and particularly in rural parts of the world, showing up and just finding a way to support. Even if it's you go to a civic center and hand out food, great. But showing up matters. And two, we can't rely, and this is not conspiratorial, we can't rely on the government to come to our aid. And a lot of that is geographic because in rural areas, the infrastructure, which is why I'm going to talk about that video in just a second, the infrastructure doesn't exist to get to people. But two, separately, um, if supplies, he's got a picture he can show you here in a few minutes. If supplies exist at a civic center or a community town center, that's amazing. But there might be somebody up a hill or a holler, as we call them in East Tennessee, that can't get down to where those things are, and nobody can get up to them where they need them, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that video he was just paused on a second ago, that's from the parking lot, that one right there. That building you see is Unaka Springs Free Will Baptist Church. It's in Irwin, Tennessee. Now, if you are a person of faith, you would know that a Free Will Baptist Church means that they do some praising up in there. Man, they
they
invoke the Spirit.
they spell God
Um,
with an A and a W. God.
oh man, they get after it. But I drove up. I literally was just driving through Irwin, looking for places to serve and care and help, looking for a driveway that looked like maybe they'd been displaced from the community. I drove up to this community church, and if you on the left side, when it was panning left, you see the banks of the Noachucky River. Okay, so this church is literally falling now into the Noachucky River, and they won't be able to stay there.
Yeah.
That's not a thing that church will be able to pass code and survive staying on that land. And so, if you're a person of that faith community that's been worshiping there for 2 weeks, 2 years, or 82 years, everything that you've held dear in terms of your faith community has literally been washed away.
Yeah.
And so, what did I do? I showed up in this place. I said, "How can I help?" And they said, "Well, you can help us cut some tree limbs because everybody there was around when Jesus was knee high to a grasshopper,
Right.
right?" And so I literally just showed up and cut some tree limbs with him for an hour. My point is, those little moments, those little individual things matter. And
Yeah.
so my encouragement to listeners are find ways when disaster strikes to show up, whether that's in your local community or if that means you have to drive several hours and get your pants dirty.
Yeah. Well, and like we were talking a little while ago, is that the resilience of community, knowing who you're. I always tell people don't. And my wife and I have been talking to some folks that we know about. Kind of we've been really big now, a few years into the preparedness and that sort of thing. And one of the key components is don't let a disaster be the first time you've met your neighbors, because those are the people who are going to be able to help you in your time of need. And you're right, don't rely on the federal government. But this was at a small high school. And was it a high school or elementary school? I think it was an elementary school,
That's an
wasn't it?
elementary school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Hampton Elementary School. And this is like you mentioned before, a town of 5,000 people were able to fill this gymnasium with clothing and water and food, baby supplies, hygiene supplies, all the things that you could need. And they had people that were running it out there, filling up their trucks, running it out to the people who still needed it. And it's a wonderful example of community, the importance of community. And I still think that it's hopeful, because with all the political partisanship, all the back and forth, all the infighting, none of that matters in a time of crisis. And it just doesn't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think that bears fruit to just pause briefly on, because you and I showed up on Friday and Saturday in these little towns, and towns is probably being generous. Communities is probably the better thing to say. You and I showed up in these little communities on Friday and Saturday where no one knew our name,
mhm,
no one knew our background, no one knew if we were Republican or Democrat, no one knew if we were a Jesus follower or a Satan worshiper. No one knew anything about it. But what we did is we showed up and we said, "We are here to help," and they
yeah,
said, "Thank you,
yeah,
thank you." Right? Because again, yeah, in the spirit of transparency, Jared and I follow one particular political persuasion, but Jared didn't sign up for the United States military because of a political persuasion. He signed up because he believes in this idea of democracy and this idea of a more perfect union,
Well,
right?
in fact, I
And
actually didn't vote for the entire time I didn't vote until I got literally the last couple of years I was in the military. I started saying, okay, now I kind of need to start voting. But I felt it wasn't a political thing. Yeah, you don't, the politics
yeah,
doesn't
but
matter.
I just double click on that and say nothing we did, nothing any volunteer will continue to do has anything to do with the candidate they follow. It's just the reality, man. And I've had a flood in my house in the last 12 months, and it sucks.
Yeah.
And I had my kids kayaked out of my house from my front door. So my kids got in a kayak at my front door and kayaked away. And if you don't know your neighbors, big G government, and this is not conspiratorial, it's just a statement of fact.
Yeah.
Big G government can't fix that for you, right? They just can't.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
to their credit,
if you're not in one of the,
when
sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Big G government, to their credit, when they showed up, so you and I were out together on Friday. On Saturday, I was back out again, and there was a very noticeable difference. The 82nd Airborne and the 101st Airborne have been mobilized at that point. So there's lots of military helicopters going around, helping and dropping supplies, and that's a great thing. That is a great thing. But if you look back at that picture from Hampton Elementary School, that whole town center was filled up by people that care. It
Yeah.
wasn't filled up by the government, and to
Yep.
the point where they even have a sign on the door that says, "Please don't bring any more,"
Yeah.
because they don't need any more. What
Yeah.
they need is Jared to show up and say, "Can I carry you over my shoulder to this vehicle waiting on you?" Or can I bring toilet paper to your actual house because your house is so isolated you can't get toilet paper in, right?
Here's another piece of this, Chuck, is that we're saying that we filled an entire gymnasium with all the things that people needed, and if they didn't have what people needed, there would be people that would get it. You don't get that. That's personal connection. That personal connection does not exist with government. This is why things like FEMA are so horribly inefficient and impersonal, because you are a number. The FEMA trucks. I don't know if you saw Glenn Beck. He was there in Western North Carolina, and they found a FEMA truck parked at the back of a parking lot. They'd been there for 2 days. They hadn't serviced a single person. In fact, nobody knew that they were there, and they set up in a place that nobody could see them, because they said, well, we need internet, and then people will be able to, we can let them know that they can get on their app and apply for their money. And they're like, they don't have cell phone service, they don't have houses, they don't have electricity.
Yeah.
How give it's just this silly impersonal bureaucracy. And
This is the Continue Freedom podcast, so I can say this, and it isn't meant to be political, but inherently is political. Tim Kennedy, who's Army Special Forces guy, former UFC fighter, who's been instrumental in the immediate response through an amazing organization called Save Our Allies. If you
yeah,
don't know it, look it up. He said after he left kind of ground zero in Western North Carolina, he said, I will take one redneck over 100 PhDs.
yeah.
And
I
I
saw
think
him say
that
that.
that's for folks that are listening to this in Turkey or California or Kansas. I think that's the thing to understand is that this idea of the United States was founded on people being involved, right? Not somebody coming to save you. And candidly, it's the first time in my life that when I'm on site, I realized how impactful my investment in that moment was, right? That I'm driving toilet paper to someone that needs to wipe their butt. And I'm taking feminine hygiene products to a female who's going to need them.
Right.
And I'm taking formula to a young mom. And it's not that the government in 2 weeks wouldn't have a plan for that. It's that they needed it right now.
Yeah.
They needed a solution today, right?
Yeah. Well, kudos to you and your wife for doing that, because that was awesome. Thank you for letting me tag along with you while you were doing it. That was fantastic. I'm glad we got to get out and do it. It was great.
Same. It was fun.
Hey, let's move to get back into the fray of the politics, which seems to just continue. But Donald Trump. So this was recently a man arrested with multiple guns, questionable credentials. It was fake VIP passes, is what it was, outside of a Trump Coachella rally. assassination attempt claim in dispute. So essentially, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department arrested a man outside the perimeter of former President Donald Trump's California rally on Sunday who was carrying multiple guns and who the local sheriff believed was plotting a third assassination attempt. The man said he was in possession of fake VIP and press passes for the rally. So I don't know why and I'm going to go ahead and shout this out to the California folks or any of the, anti-gun folks. This is California. California has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. He had multiple guns and the fake passes. Let's go on. So after the sheriff made the claim that a third assassination attempt on Trump had been thwarted, sources close to the Trump campaign said there had been no attempt made. Sources close to the Trump campaign tell at Fox News there was no assassination attempt against Trump at his Coachella, California rally yesterday. We're told a man with a gun was arrested at the perimeter of the event without incident. Now, I don't know. The sheriff, on the other hand, says, yes, he believed the man was planning on an attempt on Trump's life. This would have marked the third assassination attempt on Trump since July 13th. So we're talking about a couple of months, and this guy slips in with firearms, fake IDs, and I don't know what other assumption you can make, and I do not understand why the Trump campaign would be so quick to say, no, he wasn't there to kill him. This is California. You aren't even allowed to carry a gun in California. You know what I'm saying?
Jared, I've known you for almost 35 years.
Yeah.
If I show up at your house with multiple guns, fake passes, IDs, whatever you want to say, you could be a kindergarten graduate and say, well, I think that guy arrived with bad intentions, right?
Yeah.
And I think we as a community need to stop, sugarcoating this idea that he is a target. And he's a target for a litany of reasons. You can pick any number of them, including that the federal government is giving $100 billion to the state of Iran right now. But it's just crazy, and candidly, it's heartbreaking. It's insane to me that we live in a society in the United States of America now where 3 attempts on a presidential candidate is rationalized and
it's not even a big deal to people.
Devalued.
Yeah, it's not a big deal to people. They're like, okay, it's got it. It's just another
he deserved
one.
it. He said,
yeah, it's just Donald Trump.
He mean tweeted somebody at one time. Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, Chuck. My head goes conspiratorial on this one. It's because you think about this. This is not going to stop. I called it, and I don't. It's not like it was any great revelation because I think pretty much everybody on the right knew that there's going to be another attempt on his life, and this isn't the last one either. There's going to be more. It almost feels like we're in this MK Ultra type territory where we've got this, and it's been done with the mainstream media, but and I won't say it's like pure MK Ultra. I don't think there's mind control going into this stuff, but people have been fed this narrative that he is all the evil things that Joy Reid says that he is, or whoever says that he is. And that's why it's so easy for them to justify it. And they're like, oh, of course. I mean, if you call somebody Hitler on a regular basis, it makes perfect sense to do what that guy would do, or what any of the other people have tried to do, is to take him out, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that you're being gracious in not fully validating the left for years. And you guys can go to the Ted Cruz podcast a couple weeks ago, and they played the whole lengthy video and audio clips of everything the left has said about this man for the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that there's only 3 people that have mobilized to this point is actually kind of wild.
Yeah.
Because they have said, forgive me, Jared, I've forgotten the congresswoman from Maxine Waters. I just remembered it.
Oh, yeah.
Maxine Waters said, use violence, show up.
Oh, Nancy Pelosi has said it too. I'm surprised there. I mean,
there's I'm making up a number, a 5-minute clip video that brings all of these little talking points together where they have said, show up, fight, get mad. He's Hitler. He's the devil. If you don't rebel, you're an idiot. If you don't fight, you're an idiot. And yeah, it's just terrible, man. I mean, again, this is down a rabbit hole, which I didn't mean to get on, but
no, it's fine.
This is a man that doesn't stand to benefit at all from being our candidate. Like, he's a
Right.
billionaire. He could be playing golf 7 days a week.
Yep. It.
And we're trying to kill him because he's speaking on behalf of you. And
Yeah.
this is not coming from two people who are the captains of his fan club. It's just, I'm looking at the facts here in the building. I'm like, wait, that doesn't actually make sense.
It's true. And I think that what people, a lot of people on the left, or even some to the center left, failed to see is that despite the fact he's a billionaire and he could be off living a very happy life, he can't even play golf anymore, right? That's the thing that he loves to do more
Right.
than anything, because they say we can't secure the guy. It's too difficult now to secure him on a golf course, and yet he continues to go for the presidency. We can't we can't think that there's something other than genuine intent, or intentions, I guess would be the way to put it, for him wanting to become president, because there is no money in that. He's at
No.
78 years old. There's no more money in becoming president of the United States. He's not a
He
Barack
donated every
Obama.
dollar of his salary
Yeah.
back to the United States government.
He's not a Barack Obama or a Joe Biden or a Kamala Harris who's enriched themselves, or Nancy Pelosi, who've enriched themselves in politics. He lost. He's the first president in like 60 years who has lost wealth since running for president. And he continues to run for president, even though he's losing wealth. And I think he started at like 3.5 billion, and he was at two. He lost almost $1 billion in assets just by being president of the United States. And I don't know. I mean, that's the intentions of that are pretty clear to me, because you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? He's not, that all the changes he's making are, I mean, you could just look at his slogan, "Make America Great Again." He's literally trying to improve the country. He's not trying to maintain power and control. Now, I'm going to skip to this next thing, which is Kash Patel. Do you know Kash Patel?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, they are. So MSNBC, of course, they're flipping out about it, but apparently Kash Patel is on the short list for attorney general. So when we talk about all the corrupt politicians and we talk about the people, the inside traders, and all of these folks, this could be the guy who's going to be coming after him. And I'm going to play some of this clip. It is from MSNBC, but it's funny.
Jumped out as potentially the most alarming detail was that within the actual Trump campaign, the person whose name is being floated to be Trump's attorney general of the United States to run the Justice Department is this guy.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
That is Kash Patel, the former chief of staff to Trump's Secretary of Defense, a man who is apparently on the short list for attorney general if Donald Trump retakes office.
Yeah, boys.
Hell to yeah.
I mean, accountability. Now, so here's the way that I approach this. I mean, this is crazy, but I think that it's I think, okay, the name is out there, I believe, because they want to make people squirm. I don't know that Kash Patel is pretty inflammatory. He needs to have some role because he is an absolute bulldog. But part of me thinks that they're putting his name out there just to make all these folks squirm a bit, because they know they've done some unconstitutional, illegal, nefarious stuff. So I don't necessarily think they're going to appoint him as attorney general. But the more important question is, if they do put him in there, how are they going to, because we have to have justice, right? We have to have accountability. How are we going to do that to political opposition without absolutely kicking up a monstrous dust storm, which I don't necessarily think you can, but I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
I would say, sadly, and I mean this as demonstratively as I say it, sadly, the idea that we have to have justice has largely been evacuated for the last 4 years.
yeah,
We have a justice system that has refused to target and prosecute people that have actively broken the law. We have a Department of Homeland Security that has actively enforced or refused to enforce the border control that our United States needs desperately in order to secure our free country.
yeah,
And so, look, I love the idea. I love the idea that a justice system is going after people that have told the American population for 4 years lies. And they have substantiated lies that have been told to them because Biden's campaign told them to do that. And I love the idea that we're going after media companies that have refused to be actual journalists. Like
Yeah.
this idea that mainstream media exists anymore is just a fabrication. Like that's not true. Um, Jared
I,
can list in the comments all the litany of examples just from this most recent week. I mean, it's countless.
oh
But
yeah.
regardless, my point is to say the idea that we would have someone like Kash Patel in that role sounds crazy, and it also in some ways sounds hopeful. But don't be misled by the idea that it's because we need to have justice. Sure, we need to have justice, and we don't have it right now.
Yeah.
And
But I mean, we have to, when we have the bureaucrats, right? And the bureaucrats who are actively avoiding obeying the law and are, well, Alejandro Mayorkas is a prime example of that. This guy he is facilitating human trafficking at this point at our southern border. He is not fulfilling any of the roles that he is responsible for. He's perjuring himself in Congress, and nothing happens. And see, nothing happens with perjury unless you're a Republican. So if a
right,
Republican, through incidental conversation, that we could use, was it Roger Stone or Michael Flynn that I'm thinking of, who basically misspoke to some FBI agents, wound up getting a perjury charge, and
Michael Flynn.
Flynn, yeah. And so, yeah, if you're a Republican, it's going to happen. But I've sat and we watched Hillary Clinton lie in front of Congress, but nothing happens to someone like a Hillary Clinton. There has to be equal representation, equal justice under the law. And if Kash Patel can come in and bring the hammer down, I think it's a good thing for the system, but it's really going to tick off the left. As the right, people on the right, we're going to feel vindicated, but the left is going to feel attacked, which is what we've been feeling for the past 8 years. So it's going to be messy, but it's like a Band-Aid. We got to rip it off and we got to do it. There has to be, there has to be justice. There has to be.
I don't mean to create a diatribe here, but I'll just say, just as a period at the end of that sentence, the reality is we've had one president in the last 40 odd years that had nothing to gain by being in that office.
Yeah, that's true.
And as soon as he was a candidate for that office, was super inflamed by everyone outside of his immediate sphere. And so, I mean, let's use an example from yesterday. I saw Anthony Scaramucci said that Trump is a danger to society. Now, this is the same jackass that said he would love to be the head of his press team. I'm like, come on. Like what, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was, when he appointed you the head of his press team for 10 minutes, you were like, thank you so much.
Right.
But as soon as he said, oh, you're an idiot, you can't be in that role, all of a sudden, Trump's the devil. The reality is that, yeah, so many of the people, Mayorkas, I mean, honestly, so many of the people from Trump's first administration that were in it for the wrong reasons are out and now are casting blame and yeah, I just come back to that place where he has nothing to gain,
Yeah.
right?
No, he doesn't.
He only has a freer and better society to gain, a desire for his grandkids, your grandkids, my grandkids to live in a constitutional republic, an idea of democracy that's better than what we have right now.
I feel like it's an interesting thing. If you watch billionaires and these 9-figure people and 10-figure people and on, it's like once you have so much money, your motives seem to change, and you can either go evil and nefarious like Klaus Schwab or George Soros, and you can say I've got all the money in the world, everything I could possibly want. I need some higher purpose, because you got to strive for something, right? I mean, you know who Ed Milet is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Ed Milet talked about, he's like, when you buy the car, you get that endorphin rush. And then he said, then you buy the plane, and that's the big one, and you get the plane. And then you're just getting in and out of the plane. Like it doesn't bring you any additional happiness. And so doing something which is why the people like World Economic Forum scare me so much, is because they have their higher purpose is this globalist world control type thing. Donald Trump is a billionaire who doesn't need any more money. And his higher purpose is basically the boundary of this country. He's not as worried about the world. I mean, he worries about, bringing peace to the world so that, we can, because we need peace for us to be prosperous as well. But he has focused his higher intent on the people of this country. And, I just think it's interesting that you get to a certain point, and that's, I think, what he's proven that he's doing anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but it can be evil too. I mean, Klaus Schwab's like a dadgum Disney villain.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize how big of a stretch this is for both his physical characteristics and perhaps emotional and mental characteristics, but Trump has become the nation's Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
He's become the guy that stands up for the little guy. And gosh, remind yourself what was true 45 years ago. Jared and I were talking about this on a recent podcast. The iconic Alabama song. They say, Daddy was a veteran, a Southern Democrat. Jared, finish that line.
They ought to get a rich man to vote like that.
I mean,
yeah.
The Republican Party has become the party of blue-collar, hard-working Americans. And the Democratic Party has become the party of entitlement.
No, they are. They've got Tim Walz and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris drank a beer with Colbert, and Tim Walz couldn't get his shotgun loaded.
Because that felt normal.
I've got the video of Tim Walz. It's hilarious. I'll show you the memes. The memes have been unbelievable. But they've got a couple of funny ones. So Democrats spend every waking hour for 3.5 years demonizing white men and blaming them for all society's ills. Then they spend 6 months drinking beer and posing with rifles to desperately win their vote. I thought that was one of the most perfect posts to kind of illustrate what they're trying to do. But I gotta show the
Jared,
memes, man. They're
hold on. I got a quick story.
Yeah.
I had dinner. You know this. I had dinner on Wednesday night with a friend of mine who's a member of Navy Special Forces, prior service member, and he was a national champion clay shooter in high school.
Yeah.
Okay? Now he's out back in my house a couple of years ago teaching Knox, my oldest, how to properly hold a rifle and shoot a gun.
Yeah.
Then you got Tim Walz, who's never carried a gun in combat. Posing for a picture. Who do you want to stand next to holding a gun?
I have to play the video. Hang on. This is perfect.
Never feels quite right.
Oh, whoops.
It's not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap because it has a kind of a patented thing to kick off. So when you get old,
now I got to play the meme. Hang on, because this is so class. It's class. It's class. Watch this. You remember this game? I don't know if anybody watching this is going to be.
Man, it's the best.
Yeah.
It's not quite right. How do you give it back?
Governor, what kind of gun is it?
This is a Beretta A400. I bought it when I was shooting a lot of trap because it has it's not quite right. How do you get
That's amazing.
Is that not amazing? Oh gosh, the people that make memes, I tell you, they are like the Picassos of our day.
Amen. Amen.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
In all the ways.
I think I had one other one. Oh yeah, this one. You got to go after the nickname. Here you go. Let's see here. Let me pull this one up. There we are.
Old tampon Timmy.
Did you see Donald Trump talking about that? He was on is it not Brandon Shaw? What's the guy's name? He's done so many long form podcasts. It's one that I don't watch on.
Brandon Straka?
No. Dadgummit. I keep writing it down and then forgetting. But anyway, it was one of the long form podcasts, and he was I just lost my train of thought. It's the second time I've done that.
Brandon Trump.
Yeah.
Well,
he was talking about nicknames. That's what it was. And he was like, Tampon Tim. He's like, that's a hard one to say. He said, it doesn't roll off the tongue like others. And he said, I love the names. And so he started rattling off. It was absolutely hilarious. I think that's a cool thing. And I'm going to keep bringing it up to folks, is that him just sitting there having conversations with these random, Theo Vaughn and all these people for an hour and a half, just sitting down and chatting. That needs to be that's a prerequisite for becoming president of the United States, a senator or a congressman.
Absolutely.
You sit down with 2 hours minimum, but at least give us an hour, hour and a half where you answer any and every question. And if you answer it correctly or you answer appropriately, fine, we'll be able to flush that out. But if you sit there and BS people for an hour and a half, we're going to see that too. So I think this is the new norm. But go ahead.
I absolutely hope it is, and that begs the question: how many times has Kamala Harris sat down in the last 75 days with free reign interviewers? Is the answer.
Well, she sat down with Call Her Daddy. Did you know that she went on the?
Also, yeah, but it was also an edited video. It
Right.
wasn't just a free form. Ask me whatever you want.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's exactly right. And there's a terrible, also hilarious, but also terrible video on Trump's Instagram feed today, which is one that I saw a month ago, which is this woman in Florida where a guy runs over and puts a Harris Waltz campaign sign in this lady's yard. And he walks up to her door and says, I'm with Harris Waltz campaign. I put this sign in your yard. And I'm not going to use the language that she uses, but she's very demonstrative about her unwillingness to have that in your yard. And he says, are you not for tampons in boys' bathrooms? And she very quickly dispatches the idea that there's not a polite place for those to go.
I think the one you're talking about was the Nelk Boys or one of those guys. It was one of the more prominent podcasts that's out there. I think they were doing that door to door with people. Yeah, but here's what this makes me think of. Like this whole Kamala, I'm going to pull up the photo again because it so perfectly illustrates it. Tim Walz being out here. I don't doubt that Tim Walz has ever been pheasant hunting or that he's ever shot trap, but he's obviously not proficient in it, and he hasn't operated this particular shotgun. That was a ding on him. But then you've got Kamala Harris drinking a beer on national television, like something to humanize her. It is like, remember when we were growing up, and we got to wear the ripped jeans. You got to get you a pair of like work boot type things. For you and me, it was Hilfiger jeans and Guess jeans. Right. Or for me, I wanted to have a skull can in my back pocket, try to get a skull ring. I'd make sure that I had that because I wanted to be a redneck boy, that sort of thing. And you're trying desperately to find some way to fit into what clique you feel most comfortable with. And the Democrat Party they're like that. They're like an adolescent group of whoever their advisors are. They're like an adolescent group of people trying to find whatever way they can fit in, and they're awkward. They're kind of the young teen awkward years in their, the way they approach it. And it becomes this cringe sort of thing. And Donald Trump doesn't have to do that. He's not handicapped that way. The Democrat Party has handicapped themselves. The evidence of that is by Kamala in every single appearance that she makes changes her accent, which if you were Donald Trump would be called racist. Right. Right. So if Donald Trump shows up to a largely African-American neighborhood and talks as if he's a member of that community, they would say, you're a racist. Yeah. If Donald Trump shows up to a largely Hispanic neighborhood and talks in a Hispanic inflection, they would say, you're a racist. Yeah. He doesn't do that. He just talks like he's Donald Trump. Yeah. Well, but Kamala does it every place she goes, and everybody's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Well, politicians have been pretty successful at that for a long time. And Donald Trump, this is another reason I think that they don't like him, is he's disrupted that. He is who he is. Like, he's no different when he's out on the golf course with Bryson DeChambeau than he is when he's on the, on the stage talking to people, or when he's, behind the scenes meeting and greeting and doing all that stuff before his rallies. He is who he is, and he doesn't have to pretend to be something else. And you've got people like, GW or Obama or whatever, and they're going up in the woods and burning owls in effigy and, all that kind of stuff with what's their camp that they go up to where they... Oh, Camp David. No, not Camp David. The cult. Oh gosh, Alex Jones talks about it all the time. He went in there. Oh, good grief. This is killing me. I got to Google it now. Secret society in the woods. In the woods. I don't know why my brain is not functioning tonight. Bohemian Grove. That's the one. Going all the way up into the. You don't know about that? Oh, bro.
I don't know about that one.
Oh gosh, the congressmen, the presidents, the former presidents, the movers and shakers in politics. They go up into the woods and they have this big ceremony where they have this monstrous owl, and they burn virgins in effigy, like in these ritualistic ceremonies. Alex Jones went up there and recorded it. He snuck into it, and he got it all on recording. It's now well known. They don't hide the fact that they have the big bonfire and all that, but they're wearing their hoods and they're wearing yak heads and all this weird stuff. It's creepy. It's this closed organization of anyway. I say all that to say.
Meanwhile, you've got a billionaire who's just like, "Hey, man, I'm trying to help." So
he's like, "I'm hitting the links, and I'm gonna go eat me a McDonald's cheeseburger, have a Diet Coke, and save America, baby."
Yeah. And 8 years ago, I was so offended by his tweeting. And 8 years later, I'm like, dude, I'll take the McDonald's cheeseburger guy all day long.
I was so irritated by I was mad because I was freshly coming out of my institutionalization from the military, from active duty military.
Still coming out of active duty.
Oh yeah, and so I was all, how dare he say he's going to make the generals do this? Then you can't run it like this. You can't do that. And I've never been so happy to say I was completely wrong. But that was a great awakening for me because I realized how institutionalized I was and how beholden to not beholden, but how much faith I still had in the system. And I have none of that now, thankfully. But we got to go to talk about the coalition of people. And this isn't talking about Elon Musk and his politics. This is talking about his achievements. But I'm amazed at this coalition of like Musk, Gabbard, Kennedy, Trump, Vivek, all this, it's like this dream team of politics. And while, they're complaining about, having tampons in boys' bathrooms, Elon Musk is like landing rockets this is crazy. Literally like scissor arms capturing rockets like off the ground. It was 200 tons, I think is what he said. Is that correct?
Delete the legs, delete. We're like, well, what's you just use the arms, and then
watch this thing flying in here, man.
Wow, he's serious. Okay, we better get on this. And now it seems normal. Or
it'll weigh about 250 tons.
Jeez.
We'll make that lighter over time.
Insane.
So you got call it a couple hundred tons, plummeting at more than half the speed of sound. So this thing is still coming in really fast.
Yeah.
Pretty much down in a downward direction. So then they light the engines. So it's going to slow itself down very fast and correct any error. So like whatever the XY error is when the engines land, it's going to take out the XY error and then drop the velocity to basically zero. Come in between the arms. The arms will be wide, and as it's coming in, the arms will close. Go flush against the side of the vehicle, and the vehicle will be descending through the arms. And those tiny little, you can barely see them, the little knobs, those kind of lifting lugs will touch the top of the arms, and then it will hopefully not shear off and crumple.
That's so unbelievable. And what I love about this, aside from the guy just being quirky and weird, and I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum, isn't he? I mean, I think he said that he's got. Yeah. Is it Asperger's that he's got?
Yeah.
But this is a great example of a for-profit, motivated by some higher goal, higher purpose, who has done in just really a few years far more than NASA ever could have done with their billions and billions and billions of dollars. Like it's just another example of government inefficiency versus someone who's trying to do it for profit to make sure that he can, create an affordable way to get to another planet. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, American ingenuity works. That's the thing to remember. And it's not just American ingenuity. Ingenuity works. People, if you're a bad guy, you're going to find a way to do bad things. If you're a good guy, you're going to find a way to do good things. And back to the beginning of the show, if you're a redneck and you know people in need, like Jared and I, you're going to find a way to get it to them.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's amazing. This guy definitely deserves a place in the Trump administration in terms of fiscal responsibility. I hope we elect Trump, and I hope we give Elon Musk, who's one of the most brilliant humans on planet Earth right now, an opportunity to serve in some capacity, because he absolutely deserves. I mean, if you're the U.S. 80 years ago and they said, "Can you find a role for Albert Einstein?" The absolute answer is, for sure,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You don't say, "Oh, I don't like the way he voted last time." Like, that's
Right.
stupid. Just get over it. Like,
Well,
bring the smartest people to the table.
and they've kicked him out when they had the whole EV initiative. Tesla wasn't invited.
Yeah.
Tesla was held the vast majority of the EV market, and they invited
Sure.
GE and Ford and all those people because of his politics, because he doesn't fall in line. He's not one of the big political donors. Now, what do you think about it, the humanoid robots? Did you see that from his recent launch event with the
Yeah.
his taxi and his van? That makes me nervous because you know what he called the event? He called it We Robot. Remember the movie I, Robot? He called it We Robot. I was like, bro,
Yeah.
I sat and watched. You need to watch my video on that one, but I sat and watched a guy have a conversation with a humanoid robot, and it was not some silly conversation. It was an actual good conversation. I was,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'll just tell you, as a parent, you have four-legged friends, but I have actual people. And as a parent, he says something in there that's troublesome, which is that it can babysit your kids. I just want to be declarative, demonstrative, and clear. I'm never going to have anything that's a machine be responsible for my children.
Right.
Um, and also, there's probably some good that robots at some point in some level of our society can do. When iRobot came out, and honestly, I remember you and I growing up and watching different movies about robots. There's some interest and curiosity about what level of investment they can play in society, but they're not actual people, right? And so I work for a company that works very closely with Tesla on a lot of their technology stuff, and I won't get into more than that, but I'll just say that you can't teach a machine to make a human decision,
Yeah.
right? And so if a robot or a self-driving car or anything else is forced to make a moral decision, and you've got an old lady here, an old man here, and a baby in the middle, and something's going to get hit, something's going to get hurt. How do you teach a robot to make a moral decision?
Yeah.
You can't.
That's always the
And
dilemma.
so,
It's going to be so analytical
yeah,
and cold calculated that it takes all the human out of it. But
sure. It's not that you can't teach a robot to mow your grass or to unpack your groceries. Sure,
yeah,
we can open to that idea,
I worry about it
but there'll
because
never be a play.
it's the next step to transhumanism, and Klaus Schwab talked about it. He gave it to the young leaders in the World Economic Forum, was telling them that you'll be able to download your consciousness into an AI, enabled essentially machine, and we can transfer you into something else, and your usable work span or your work life can be maybe as much as 100 years, and so on and so forth. This is all transhumanism, playing God type stuff, and I feel like that's you take a robot like he's created, then you take Neuralink, which is an implant in the brain. You've got loads and loads of technology. Now you've also, it could secretly be ushering in some sort of Armageddon type scenario, because he's got satellites, worldwide communication. He's able to implant things in people's brains, and he's got humanoid robots walking around. Like, if there's ever a doomsday scenario, it would come from somebody like him who has pure intentions but unleashes something horrible upon the world. I mean, I guess that's the theme of every movie that we see too, but that doesn't mean it
Well,
can't happen in real
and
life,
but to that point, every extreme idea has taught us that they dull us by saying polite things, meanwhile doing um, extreme things behind the scenes,
Right.
right? Vladimir Putin is an extremist, right? The Ayatollah Khomeini and the leader of Iran every day forces his people to chant death to America and death to Israel
Mm-hmm.
in a more human way, right? The Black Lives Matter movement is not for Black lives. They're just
Right.
not.
Right.
They're not a group that mobilizes and supports the advancement of African American people. And so, like, on a localized level, on a national level, on an international level, just by saying something polite doesn't mean that you're actually doing things that are actually polite for people.
Yeah. Fair point. Well, I think I'm going to cut it off on that one because we've got, golly, I've got so many more things to get to, but I think we're running out of time. But thank you so much for coming on, Chuck. It's always a good time when we can sit down
Heck
and have
yeah,
a
man.
conversation. It's always good. All right, for everybody out there, if you're still with us, make sure that you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we release a new video. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. God bless America. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks again, Chuck.